And be ye not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. A verse from Corinthians by the Apostle Paul. So many of us, we live in monotony. There is a line from a public speaking book, which I've read, The Art of Public Speaking by, I believe his name is Ryan Clyde. He calls monotony, to paraphrase, he sort of coins monotony as the sin of speaking, but monotony is more than just a sin of speaking, of public speaking, because obviously it bores the audience, but monotony is also an enemy. It's something that the enemy uses against us. So often in our lives, we sort of go through the motions. And I'm sort of guilty of this as well. We wake up, we go on our phone, scroll, do it again. Wake up, go on our phone, scroll, do it again. Go to work, 9 to 5, whatever, come back home, lay down, sleep, repeat, do it again. We fall into the same cycle of monotony over and over and over again. And I really do believe that this is something that the enemy uses to make us comfortable, right? And the truth is, unfortunately, and I do feel like the way that America has come up, not just America, but many places in the world, we sort of grown up with this convenience of, not only technology, but, food resources that we can use freely anytime, that we don't have to work for, we don't have to fight for. Back then in the world, in more, I would say, primitive times, we would have to hunt for food. We would have to do this, that, and sometimes people wouldn't know if they would have enough food for the next day, And what I can say is that monotony truly is the enemy of success, but it is also the enemy of us as Christian people, right? Because we let this world make us so comfortable just going through the motions. Just go to my job, go back, go home, do this, repeat. Go to my job, go back, go home, do this, repeat. And we do this for days on end, never questioning it. And I would really say that the reason that the enemy does this is it harms a very specific part of who we are as Christians, if you are Christian, but also as a person, right? And the part that it harms is our identity, really. What do I mean by this? So, let me ask a hypothetical question to someone listening to this. When was the last time that you truly felt alive? As cliche as that might sound, what was the last time you really felt alive? And maybe some of you are wondering, and thinking to yourselves, well, I don't really know, right? Why is that? It's because you've been letting monotony eat away at you. You've been letting monotony eat away at your soul, right? And, I feel like nowadays we're so overstimulated by all the things and gadgets that we have, our phones, this, that, the other, that we we never have the time to really reflect and think about, for example, a career, or what do you truly want to do with your life, right? For me, I know right now, the time period that I'm in my life, I've been asked countless times, what do you want to do with your life? I've had a college counselor. This was actually before I dropped out of college, right? But I dropped out for mainly financial reasons. But, I had a college counselor ask me one time, he was like, what do you want to do with your life? Sort of with this like condescending tone almost, And I couldn't respond, right? I couldn't really respond. Now, why couldn't I respond, right? Well, here's the main thing. I couldn't respond because I've been living my life, even as a child, in such a monotonous way, never really thinking about what truly burdens my soul, what truly makes me feel alive. And I feel like that's so true for so many different people. We live in such a way that we sort of just go through the motions. We don't ever try, to really get out of that monotonous cycle, right? But the truth is, and just like I said from the verse, the Bible calls us to not be conformed to this world, right? And I just want to speak to someone today who maybe you are very comfortable where you are. Maybe you are living a great life, and that's cool, right? But if you're not living the life that you want to, if you're not living out the promises that God has spoken for us time and time again, right? You really have to, I would say, number one, because a lot of the time, sometimes it can be a hidden sin, or, maybe you're not aligning yourself with God's will. But number two, you have to ask yourself, am I too comfortable where I'm at right now? Am I too comfortable in this job? Am I too comfortable waking up, not doing anything with my day, just working, going back home and going to sleep? You have to ask yourself, am I truly comfortable? Am I too comfortable where I'm at right now? Right? And for me, I talked about in the previous video how I really struggled to foster a connection with God. For the first few months that I started going to church, I would see people, weeping, getting down on their knees and praising God. And, I couldn't relate to it at all, right? And the truth is, what the enemy seeks to do more than anything in our lives is to beat the life out of you. Now, what do I mean by that? To beat the life out of you, it's to beat out what God has inherently given to each and every one of us. But our soul, our emotions, feeling, having a burden. The enemy wants to take that away from us. And unfortunately, I've gone through some things in my life, and I know a lot of people can relate to this, where it just seems like there are so many instances where life just beats, like just almost, it's like it punches your soul out of you. It makes you unfeeling. The Bible warns in the last days that many will grow cold, and I really do feel like that coldness comes from the life that God has given us being stripped away from us, letting sin consume us, letting ourselves be conformed to the world, and letting it strip away our sensitivity to God, but then also really to what we truly want. So here's the main point where I'm going to end off here. We need to understand one thing, and that is that we are human, of course, but more importantly, we're made in God's image. And God has compassion on us and love on us. And like I said, for those first couple of months, I was really struggling to feel God. I was really struggling to really feel a connection with God. But I would say, like I said, it was mainly because of the way that I grew up. I really just felt like I had almost a life beat out of me. That joyful child, that would be happy and joyful all the time wasn't there anymore. I've had a relative or family question me saying, oh, why are you like this? When you were a child, you were this way, right? Now, the truth is, you change as you become older, of course, through life experiences. But for me, I've gone through a lot of stuff like bullying, deaths, just a lot of different things that really took that inherent compassion and sort of feeling that the Lord has given to each and every one of us. And what I want to say to you guys is, we need to find that again. We need to find that compassion again. We need to find that empathy again. We need to find that feeling again. As cliche as this may sound, you need to find something that moves you so much that you cry, you feel alive again, You need to go back to that part of yourself that has been repressed, or that the enemy has really beaten out of you or really tried to take away from you. And only then can we truly find fulfillment in God and in our lives. Amen. Love you guys.